from the...
Like a small crawl space, and I was digging around with my flashlight, trying to get a good spot to put the trap down, and I'm crawling back out, and I looked up, and just an odd shape caught my eye. And I didn't really want to put my hand in because there's spider webs and all kinds of stuff, but I pulled it out, and it was this bank. So I don't know exactly who the owner was, but I took it as my fee for setting the rat traps.
So you had this bank for over 20 years then? Wow. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the bank. This is one of the first banks ever made by J&E Stevens out of Cromwell, Connecticut. J&E Stevens is probably one of the best-known bank makers for mechanical banks.
It's actually from Connecticut?
Yes, it's from Connecticut.
Cool.
And they started making banks for themselves in 1872. This is one of their earliest. This has a patent date of just about that, 1872, 1873. And you'll start finding it in jobber catalogs in 1877 and 1880. And it's called, and I know this is shocking, Frog-on Latticework Bank. And what's great about this is not a rare bank. They made a number of these. What's unusual about it, it's got this wonderful pink lattice work. Most of the time the lattice work is in different colors. And I'm sure you know how this works.
Yes.
You press his foot,
Ribbit.
you feed it, and ribbit, there it
In
goes.
fact, the eyes move also.
Exactly. Originally he had brighter eyes. And this paint up here was brighter. If you clean this, I think a lot of this paint would come
I
out.
didn't want to touch it. I never did anything with it. I had it in an old wool watch cap.
Really? Well, the fact that mechanical banks are so collectible today, even though there are a lot of them out there with this paint level, it's worth between $800 and $1,200.
Oh my God.
So this frog truly is a prince.
Wow.
I inherited it from my grandma.
Somebody has written in script, in pencil here, this belongs to the Know-Nothings, June 1854.
Yes.
So my assumption is that it's related to the Know-Nothing political movement.
Yes. The Know-Nothings were a political group in the middle of the 19th century. It was xenophobia. They wanted to keep immigrants out of this country. Cities were flooding with Roman Catholic immigrants at that time. And they demanded two things in their platform. One was that any candidate for government, for election, had been native born to this country. The other was that citizenship would only be granted to immigrants after 21 years. They were named the Know-Nothings because they were a secret society. When asked about membership, they always replied that they knew nothing. Not one of the prettiest pictures in American political life.
No, not at all.
It's wonderfully painted. It's in good condition. I would say that on the marketplace today, this box would probably bring about $2,500.
Very nice.
This was in the attic of a relative.
In
And
the
I
attic of a relative.
fell in love.
What do you know about it?
I know that it's oriental and that it's bronze.
Well, it's not just bronze. It's also copper and a metal called shakudo. It's a combination of various alloys that turns a blue-black color. And that shakudo is in the faces of the dragons.
Oh.
And some of the other elements of the dragons along the neck of the base up here.
What is the gold-colored metal?
Gold.
Okay.
And it's also signed. This cartouche here, which reads Comin, is the maker's name. Then it's also signed up top on the back of the little boy.
Oh, I didn't notice that one.
It's Meiji period, which is like 1868.
A friendship with this man that this came into being.
Right.
There's a lot of history that's encoded into these things. We've got kind of a document of the history of railroads here. And the other thing which is interesting that I have a little bit of perspective on, the history of prisoner art, which goes back to the 18th century with French prisoners who were at Dartmoor prison and who had obviously a lot of time on their hands and made the most intricate kinds of toys and mechanical things. I would think on the auction market it would have an estimate of somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000, and if you got a couple of railroad fans in there, it could go significantly higher.
Very good.
1930s. My parents went to an estate sale in New Haven, Connecticut, and they bought it. And I know that they didn't pay much money for it because they didn't have any money. It's been in the family for over 60 years.
It's wonderful. This particular glass was made at Tiffany around 1914. Tiffany was owned and operated by Louis Comfort Tiffany, who was the son of Charles Tiffany, the founder of Tiffany and Company. This particular glass is called aquamarine glass. It was produced for a very short period of time.
Traps, we had a bad rat problem. I must have been about 13, 14 years old. And while setting the rat traps, I had to get into like a small crawl space. And I was digging around with my flashlight, trying to get a good spot to put the trap down. And I'm crawling back out, and I looked up, and just an odd shape caught my eye. And I didn't really want to put my hand in because there's spider webs and all kinds of stuff, but I pulled it out, and it was this bank. So I don't know exactly who the owner was, but I took it as my fee for setting the rat traps.
So you've had this bank for over 20 years then. Wow. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the bank. This is one of the first banks ever made by J&E Stevens out of Cromwell, Connecticut. J&E Stevens is probably one of the best-known bank maker for mechanical banks.
It's actually from Connecticut?
Yes, it's from
that is too
Connecticut.
cool.
And they started making banks for themselves in 1872. This is one of their earliest. This has a patent date of just about that, 1872, 1873. And you'll start finding it in jobber catalogs in 1877 and 1880. And it's called, and I know this is shocking, Frog on Lattice Work Bank. And what's great about this is not a rare bank. They made a number of these. What's unusual about it, it's got this wonderful pink lattice work. Most of the time, the lattice work is in different colors. And I'm sure you know how this works.
Yes.
You press his foot,
Ribbit.
you feed it, and ribbit, there it
I like the
goes.
fact the eyes move also.
Exactly. Originally, he had brighter eyes, and this paint up here was brighter. If you clean this, I think a lot of this paint would come
I didn't
out.
want to touch it. I never did anything with it. I had it in an old wool watch cap.
Really? Well, the fact that mechanical banks are so collectible today, even though there are a lot of them out there with this paint level, it's worth between $800 and $1,200.
Oh my God.
So this frog truly is a prince.
Wow.